Good afternoon, guys. Going to talk about Donald Trump's biggest con. If you're wondering who my picks were, I was too late with the videos today, but my pick Boston and Memphis to win tonight. Um, you know, Trump has grifted many people throughout the decades of his life. He failed to pay suppliers, he failed to pay creditors, he failed to pay his lawyers. He said he would donate to the military. Didn't do so right before the presidential debates. Donald Trump has mastered the grift his entire life. And some think the biggest grift of Trump may not be that he stole the inauguration funds for the inauguration committee. He grifted the taxpayer out of his golfing excursions every single week. The Secret Service having to burn fuel, Trump renting out his properties to the Secret Service. That cost was passed down to the taxpayer. The, the biggest grift itself, you see, is not that Donald Trump got elected. I think the biggest grift has everything to do with what everyone is complaining about, which is where did all the COVID money go? Where did all it go? Why didn't we get $17,000? 5 trillion divided by 300 billion, 5 point something trillion divided by over 300 million means okay, roughly it's $17,000 a person. Did everyone get $17,000? No, they didn't. If you were unemployed for months, say 6 months or so, let's say until you got back, then you're looking at roughly, let's say 6,000 of unemployment. My point is that with all that money, each of us could have gotten a lot more than just the minuscule federal unemployment dollar every single week. The Trump's biggest con is that specifically before the CARES Act was passed, Democrats are like, hey, you need an oversight committee to watch out where this money is going to. Now, there is going to be some inevitable fraud with it because when you're trying to distribute money as soon as possible, you're looking at getting it out there ASAP. You're not looking to have complete accuracy in terms of fraud committed. That's just going to hold up the process. We got the money out quick. There was some fraud, but the money didn't go towards the people that needed it. For example, student loans they wanted to forgive, but people still lost their homes. One group is saying, "Hey, they got bailed out. Their loans were they're relieved of their loans from their colleges, and why haven't I been relieved from my mortgage?" And that's just meant to divide us. When certain businesses were deemed essential and others non-essential, they wanted to bickering with each other because they wanted to divide and conquer the masses. Like, hey, they're getting these special privileges from the government. I'm not. Everything is woe is me with them. You shouldn't be blaming them. You should be blaming billionaire corrupt government that is purposely using these mechanisms to divide and conquer the masses. That is Trump's biggest grift. It was right before the CARES Act was signed. Donald Trump said, hey, I will not sign the bill until you get rid of the Watchdog committee. The GOP said we are not going to pass this bill unless if there is no oversight where the money is truly going to. The money, over 80% of COVID relief, over 80% didn't go to America, didn't go to the Small Business Association loans that they repeatedly rejected. Many small business owners didn't get these PPE funds. Tom Brady got his, Kanye West got his, Donald Trump's cronies got their bailout money, but no, small business did not. 70% went to corporate bonds, to their stocks. They bailed out corporate America with over 70% of the COVID relief bill, and the 10% went to Trump and cronies et al., all the rest of the people in Washington, or to whatever golf course, whatever, at their local government level, that money being dished out. Okay, that's a little separate thing. That's the rescue package. That exactly is my point. We could have got much more out of this bill than what Donald Trump gave to us. He was looking out for the corporations first and foremost. He printed trillions of dollars did not go back into the economy. All of that money Trump gave to the corporations by getting rid of the Watchdog Committee, by getting rid of the Oversight Committee. He was able to bail out the airlines. They've laid out millions of workers. They laid them off. The airlines bought back their own stock with that bailout money. Trump gave one huge bailout to corporate America, but was our lives going to be the same again? No, it was not. It was not, because they were going to continue to price gouge us. You see, there's all this money that they lost from 2020 that they have to make up for it. So what are they going to do? They're going to raise their prices and blame it on the supply chain. We don't get there unless if we had a quicker response to COVID. Americans are hurting from inflation. These corporations got bailed out with trillions of dollars printed out and given out without any oversight by the grifter Donald Trump and the GOP, who refused to pass this bill unless they got rid of the oversight watchdog. And they did get rid of the COVID stimulus PPE watchdog, and that's exactly why all the money went to the top. That is how inflation happens. When the money sits at the top, it's not being spent. It's sitting on their stocks. It's sitting on their bonds. That money's not being spent. That money is sitting, and that money is becoming worthless. That is Trump's biggest grift, is Donald Trump has contributed to the inflationary economy by the largest of measures today. We wouldn't be suffering all of this inflation if all these corporate bonds got back to you and you spent the money out there. No wonder why. Money's worthless when it sits in the bank or in your stock. Money only means something if it's being circulated. We don't get here today without how the funds of COVID were distributed. There was no watchdog whatsoever. None of that money went back to the economy at all. They sat and watched it become worthless because Trump and the GOP and the corporate Democrat establishment gave it all to their supporters. They gave it all to their cronies and their donors and their corporations. We don't get to today without seeing how over 70% of the COVID relief bill could have gone to you, could have gone to me, you could have kept your house, you could have kept all that. Instead, the rich have bought 1/4 of the houses. A quarter of the houses in 2021 was bought by these housing corporations, these multinational, these housing brokers like your BlackRock, I think it is, right? And some other ones. But basically, these houses are being bought by corporations that are renting at above market value. You could go on and on and on and on with this. And that is the grift. The grift was the biggest grift of all was not Trump getting elected. He could have grifted people his whole life, and he could have become a legend and say, hey, this is the end of COVID, money's going to the people. And instead, Donald Trump did the exact opposite. And I don't know why people want him to be reelected. What is wrong with people? Trump set the predicament for Joe Biden to go back to Delaware every single week. By going back to Mar-a-Lago every week, he set the predicament for Joe Biden to do nothing. What will the GOP do if they win the midterms? A about inflation? What will the GOP do about that? Nothing. Nothing. What did they do about health care, the big bad Obamacare that they had a plan for? Nothing. 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 They do nothing about it because helping the top 1% and helping the shareholders make as much money as they can, price gougers and make record profits, that is the Republican way. That's why if they win the midterms, nothing's going to change. The cycle will repeat itself. Women's rights, abortion, all that. You want to overturn Roe versus Wade. You want to get women out to vote. They'll reverse their course. If they're really going to play with fire, they're already planning on suppressing the vote like they did in 2020 when they tried to stop the counting of the mail-in ballots. See, that's why Trump lost. He didn't act on COVID at all. All the COVID money went to the very wealthy. In leadership, the buck doesn't stop there, like Harry Truman said, and Donald Trump was at the very top of him and said, hey, but see, Trump is a grifter at the heart, at the core. We were never, ever going to get all the help we needed, did we? Nope. The con continued. When Trump has control over where all this money goes to without any oversight committee, that is where fraud is committed. The biggest fraud is not committed with unemployment claims, although there is some fraud that happened. That's definitely true. Like I said at the beginning of this recording, the biggest fraud is committed at the very, very, very top by Trump and the cronies of the Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment. The biggest fraud committed by the bank, the Fed, who gave it all pretty much to the large corporations. You wonder why we're having inflation? That's why. They want to recoup all the money they lost from 2020 and extended social distancing to 2021. In large corporations, trillions of dollars were printed out of thin air to only sit as corporate stock buybacks. We've had buybacks under Obama. We've had buybacks under Donald Trump after the tax bill. It's nothing new. It's just business at first. It's just business first in Washington, D.C., looking out for their fellow cronies who give them all the money to be in power and to help write the laws that help the rich get richer while the rest of the country continues to be all bickering with each other and divided and conquered.